and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please note that all select people are here. Julie's working, so we're not yet here. And this meeting is essentially to look under the new business. If you all have an agenda, we have 2 items to discuss, but some other things, and I am going to have some public access. And the new business says to review and accept a citizen's petition from Paula Kelso and Jessica Gray for the June 10th vote, to review and accept articles on the land use changes for the June 10th vote from the planning board, and then public access. So I would remind everybody that selectmen meetings and other meetings, we have a policy that if people want to speak, we have a half-hour time limit for everybody to speak with 5 minutes at each session. I understand that explaining ordinances and the petition may take a little bit longer than that, but please know that we are going to have public comments. So let's start with to review and accept the citizen's petition from Paula Kelso and Jessica Gray for the June 10th vote. I don't have my copy of that. Paula, do you have? Where's Paula? Yes, Julie.
What Pete and I have to say at this meeting really needs to be expressed before you get to number 2.
Okay. Would you like to speak now?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll allow that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's see. First of all, this is a wicked busy time of year for me. So if I leave early, it's not because I'm storming out and disrespectful or
Got it,
anything,
got
okay? The bit on the first thing we wanted to say, and these will be very quick, on the 4,000 foot setback. We're just in a position of wondering how anybody could be opposed to protecting people's property, entire property, as much as, you know, the building on their property. And we're concerned that a developer would get to use our land as his buffer. My land is for me and my kids and my future development, and it's not for someone else to use as their buffer. As far as the planning board changes go, we're wondering why the changes, and we feel it's because Mr. Fuller failed to comply with the ordinance. He couldn't meet the ordinance standards, and so the ordinance is being changed so that he can do his project, and that's the driving force here. We're concerned that the ordinance is being gutted, and with that is gutting the protection for the residents of the town of Clifton, which is why the ordinance is there. Especially, we're concerned about losing the protection from the effects of low frequency noise that is in there. And to speak to that, we've got a video for each of the select board members that are here. It's the second thing on that video, and it's people in a town like Clifton speaking about what it's like living with low frequency noise. We feel it's a public health and safety issue, and that the only information really that the planning board's relying on in that, or that actually you have to rely on, is like, well, who's the authority, you know, who are we to speak, is this sound consultant from Virginia, Mr. Hessler, who is an industry consultant. He's tantamount to a doctor who consults for the tobacco industry. And it's not who we would like our town going to get reassurance on how well this ordinance is going to protect their residents. So we are concerned that the creation of these ordinance changes has been by a planning board that's not impartial, that want the project and that promote the project. And last December at the select board meeting, when we said that their desire for the project was the driving force between their not enforcing the ordinance, I recall Bruce Jellison being offended and saying that, we had insulted their honor and integrity. And you want to take it from there, Julie?
Yeah, so on December 18th, we were really shut down at that meeting for questioning the integrity of the planning board. And then, as you know, Pete and I sent a letter out to Clifton residents with a few exceptions. We didn't send it to planning board members. We did send it to select board members. Basically because for 4 years we haven't been heard by the planning board. And so shortly after we sent out the letter, it came to our attention from a person's testimony that in early January, a meeting was held privately in the basement of the Clifton Baptist Church, and it was attended by Bill Rand, Bruce Jellison, and Paul Fuller. And it was a promotional, it was meant to promote wind development in Clifton. And when Pete and I read through the planning board manual, it couldn't be clearer that that type of collusion is completely unethical. And we're going to these meetings hoping that the planning board is listening to us impartially. And they are, in fact, working with the developer, gathering citizens, meeting privately in the basement of the church to promote the project. So that we are making a very strong objection to that meeting and to their behavior and to their partiality. They're supposed to be impartial. They're supposed to make sure that applications comply with the ordinance, period. That is their job. And so we would like the select board to investigate that meeting, which was probably in the first week of January. We would like you to find out who was there, what was the content, and do you agree with us that that was unethical? That's foul play. And then we would like to know what you're going to do about it, about the fact that that went on. What are you going to do about it? I mean, that they're now asking you to choose or to put on the ballot their package of amendments when that's how they were behaving as they were writing those changes. That needs to enter into your decision today, because that's foul play. The planning board manual is incredible. Under no circumstances, it says, shall members of planning boards meet with either side outside of public meetings. Under no circumstances. So there's no, you just can't let that slide. So we would like to hear back.
And it raises questions. What is the extent of it? So we heard about this meeting. What is the extent of communication, private communications with the developer? How long has it been going on? What do you personally know about it? Maybe you know a lot right now. I don't know. But we need to know, and our town needs to know, before you continue paving the road forward here.
Do you have any questions of us before we sit down?
Can you give me the names of the people that were there from the planning board?
Bill Rand and Bruce Jellison, at least.
Okay, so only two that you know of.
Right, and we understand that's not a quorum, Nancy, we understand that. The planning board manual is very clear that what went on is unethical, whether or not there was a planning board majority.
Do you have any proof that this meeting was held specifically for that reason?
Well,
Yes.
first of all, was anybody on the select board there?
I was there.
Okay,
That's what I
so
think. Was it the January one? Yeah.
In the basement of the Clifton Church?
I guess
And
Karen, you can-
my intent was to, and I don't even remember what we talked about, what was talked about at the meeting. I went for the particular person of my presence that I feel like I need to be informed about what was going on. And stated nothing other than that I was introduced as a select person. Listened, and that was it.
So,
I-
yeah,
What?
can I read a couple of pieces from the manual?
What was the purpose of the meeting?
I think one of the things, if we're gonna start talking about this kind of issue, I think we need to deal with a preliminary issue. And that is, and this would have to do with, I think, two people on the select board. One is Julie Cluley, who has recused herself from all conversations, or from work with respect to this project, for a reason that I don't know really amounts to any sort of conflict, but she's not here anyway. The other thing is that the Clifton Select Board has an ethics policy, and in the ethics policy it talks about, it says that when a public official has a financial or special interest in the deliberations and decisions that come before him or her in the course of performing the functions and duties of the office held, that official is deemed to have a conflict of interest and must avoid even the appearance of being involved in those deliberations and decisions. It says that no select board member, when acting in such capacity, no select board member shall, when acting in such capacity, participate in the discussion or vote or otherwise take part in the decision-making process on any agenda item before his or her collective body, or perform any duty of office in which he or she has any financial or special interest other than an interest held by the public generally. These provisions are more broad than the state law on conflicts of interest. And there is a definition of what special interest means later in this policy. It's defined as a direct or indirect interest having value peculiar to a certain individual or group, whether economic or otherwise, which value may accrue to that individual or group as a result of the passage or denial of any order, ordinance, or resolution, or the approval or disapproval thereof by the select board or by an appointed collective body or board appointee, and which interest is not shared by the public generally. I'm not sure about the enforceability of that standard, but the reason why I bring it up is because I understand that Stephanie is a member of the Clifton Task Force on Wind.
I have been involved with the communications going on between the task force, and I have also looked at that ethics policy. And my opinion is a common opinion held by the general public. That is not a special interest.
Okay.
A special interest would be something that would affect me individually.
Right.
But 70-something people signed a petition, and I also signed it. And to me, that means that the general public shares my opinion on the matter.
Okay.
Furthermore, at the last meeting, I believe Ed Beauchamp expressed his opinion that he is for the wind project. So would that mean a conflict of interest for Ed as well?
I would like to interject and say, since we're the ones standing up here,
Yes.
we're the ones.
I'd like to talk,
Madam Chairman, a point of order.
Madam Chairman, if that's all right.
Okay, we have a point of order here. Paula.
Okay, what Mr. Subject is quoting from is a draft of an ethics policy that I brought to the town selectmen in whatever year it was, 2005, 2007, and asked them to put out for the town to vote. The selectmen did not adopt it. They took it under consideration as a working document that they might improve on and at some point put out to vote. It was never adopted. It has no meaning whatsoever.
You know, can I respond to that? I looked into that because I had not heard of it until recently. And when I looked into it, I looked at the minutes from that meeting, and the minutes seemed to say that the board adopted it as a work in progress. which means it would be a policy, and it says it's a policy and not an ordinance, not something that
It
would
never
be.
saw the light of day again.
But and I think I have a copy of those minutes. It appeared to
Oh, yeah, I
say
read the minutes, yeah.
that it was voted on and approved by the select board as a work in progress. So,
Right.
you know, I wasn't around back then, and I don't know what happened then, except that I just got my information from the minutes. And I'm trying to lay my hands on it now. I think it's in here.
Carol?
Yes.
This is getting diverted. I am not complaining at all that you were at the meeting. I am not. So I would like to get this back to planning board members. They are supposed to behave differently than select board members. They have a different role in the town. Planning board members met at a meeting, a private meeting with the developer to promote the wind energy project. That is an ethical problem. That's what I'm pointing to. I don't want to get into this rabbit hole that's
But Julie,
happening
the
now.
reason why I'm diverting it is because I don't want the select board to discuss this until this issue is resolved. Because if the ethics policy should be followed, and if by having Stephanie participate, it's not being followed, then that would be something that I should call attention to the board before they start the discussions.
Okay, but I'd like to point out,
Just
in
like
the
how Julie
planning
has
board
stepped up.
manual, under no circumstances should board members meet with someone representing just one side of an issue outside a public meeting setting. Now, that's the planning board manual. If that isn't exactly what they did,
And Julie, I'm just saying that the select board, before they even talk about it, should address the issue that I'm bringing up.
okay,
They
I
shouldn't
just,
talk
I don't
about
want it to get diverted. That's,
Well,
so
I don't think it.
bring it back.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, bring
Definitely.
it back.
I have a point of order here, okay? Now, first of all, the project in question was already decided upon and adjudicated, and it's already been in process. So the decision-making time for that project is past. Thus, they're in court right now in Supreme Court. So the planning board doesn't even have a project to review. So technically, there's no project. There is none.
There's the second application in, Eric, and
It's
you have it
tabled.
tabled.
It's tabled, and it's not, the box hasn't even been opened. So I don't even know what is in the box because I don't want to know what's in the box, because I don't want to have a feeling about what's in the box.
You know what's in the box.
Well, I know there's a project in the box, but I don't know whether it's more or less the same
You know
or
it's
whatever.
exactly the same.
Well, no, I don't know that
Okay.
because I
You
have
don't
not
know.
opened the box.
But also,
Because
planning
I am
board
in
members-
pocket, because actually,
Hello?
sorry about that.
No,
But
it's
anyway, the
okay.
project was approved, and that's my point, okay? The select board member, or the planning board member, to the best of my knowledge, only went to the meeting for informational purposes, for the same as for you. And the other planning board member in question is no longer a member of the planning board.
Okay.
So it's kind of almost a moot point. And I have additional comments regarding the misinformation provided by Mr. Beckford regarding the nature of the approved ordinance, which I feel like I need to address at the
Okay.
appropriate time.
All right. Let me just say that this is to review and to hear everybody, and I do not want it to get nasty. I please would try to just speak your piece and do it the way it needs to be done. We need to follow our rules of order as well. Our attorney is here, needs to speak, and I'd like him to do that, please.
I did find the minutes from the select board meeting of November 15th, 2005, and it says regarding the ethics policy that after some discussion and a few changes, it was voted to accept the draft copy as a work in progress. So it was voted on by the select board as a policy. And so for that reason, and you know, it seems to me that I guess it's a policy. And if it's a policy, this select board could vote not to follow it, or to change it, but as of right now, it seems as if it's a policy as a work in progress, and it has those provisions in it. And long ago, when the select board before they talked about anything having to do with this wind project, we talked about Julie Cluley. And she worked at an insurance brokerage that the applicant buys insurance from or something. She does not own that brokerage, but she asked, she said, I'm willing to recuse myself, and at that time I didn't think there was any problem with that, and so she's been recusing herself and not participating in any of the discussions, even though she might not fall in to that special interest area, because she doesn't have any, she just works at this place where this applicant buys insurance from, but she recused herself and has not taken part in these, and so I think that before the select board should talk about any of this, when we're talking about the wind project, I think there's a procedure in here for if, it doesn't sound, I guess the question would be, is Stephanie interested in recusing herself from these discussions to make it easy for the board? And if not, then there's a procedure that's supposed to be followed according to the policy, basically amounting to voting by the other select board members regarding whether this is a conflict of interest as defined by the policy. And,
let me ask you this. The liquor petition that the select board members all signed except for Mr. Beauchamp, how would that not be a conflict of interest when it comes time to vote on whether or not to put the liquor license provision on the ballot? Just because I signed a petition and hold an opinion that is the same as the general public, how is that a conflict of interest? And you can't look back and say, because we did this for Julie, and it might not have made sense then.
I'm not drawing a conclusion as to whether you have a conflict of interest. I'm saying that the board needs to address the issue before there's any discussion. And
I don't think there's anything really to address here. It's not an issue.
Well, that's my opinion is it needs to be addressed before there's any discussion about the wind project, and that the procedure that is elicited, that is mentioned in the ethics policy should be followed before any discussion. That's my opinion. And you can take my opinion or not take it. It's up to you. And I'm not suggesting there is a conflict of interest. I'm just saying there's an issue that needs to be addressed.
I will make a comment, and I've had this discussion with Stephanie, that when the project began and people were discussing and talking, Peter came to my house with a petition. I did not want to sign that because I held a select board position at the time, and feel still in my heart that as a select person you need to be impartial. You need to try to make a decision, whatever that decision is, whether you agree or not. Our job is for the betterment of the town, of the entire citizen body of the town. And that becomes difficult, as we've seen over the last few years for all of us, because emotions get involved in it. But that decision-making needs to be looking at both sides and having discussions and listening. The very difficult part is I also have not signed petitions when Paul brought them around. That's my personal choice because I just feel that shouldn't be there.
Did you sign the liquor petition?
I can't, yeah, I think.
The liquor petition initiated by the select board. I don't see that that is any different. And I ask you, you had a conversation with the MMA regarding this. You never did respond to me and tell me what they said. What was their opinion on the matter?
The decision with the MMA, when I discussed it with them, I discussed that with, and I told you this, with the part of being associated with a task force that opposed wind, being part of vocal, saying things that were said prior to coming on as a select board person, and their response to that was, you have the right to say and to affiliate to wherever. My discussion and concern came when you signed a petition. And how do you perceive yourself as being impartial and giving a fair chance to listen to both sides? And I understand your comments. I went to an elected officials workshop last night. There was a long discussion about conflict of interest and bias. And it's the last comment that was made in the evening was before we were all going home was, if it looks and it feels like conflict of interest, then it is. That's my feeling and my thought on it. I know you look differently, but I think it needs to be brought out in the open, and I think it's a part of what we should decide as select people. Yeah.
And just to clarify the liquor option, we were asked by the state of Maine to have this
But
done.
it's still a petition to put on the ballot, and from my understanding of the law is, as a select board member, I have every right to solicit a petition from the citizens of the public. I have every right to bring it to the select board, not only as my signature, but as me initiating it. I have that right. We do have a different duty than the planning board. I am allowed to have an opinion. We all have opinions, and we have all expressed them. Ed has said that he's for the wind project. If you take me off of this board today, he should go too.
Wait 1 second. How many people in this room, raise your hand, have been overcome by gas fumes? Nobody. So you don't know what gas fumes can do to you. I've been dragged out of garages twice because I stayed in there too long working the vehicles. What I said was, I'm in favor of wind. I didn't say I was in favor of his wind. I'm in favor of solar. I didn't say it's his solar, even in this room. I'm in favor of anything that gets oil out of our lives. And if anybody in here can't understand that, you're wrong. I'm right. Gas, oil kills you. Wind power, no matter what, I've heard all the stories about wind power, is not going to kill anybody. There was a statement made here some years ago that 6 people in the world were killed by wind power. There are a lot of people in this room. I don't know where that was, but it was come from this audience. When I listen to stuff, just because I don't speak a lot doesn't mean I don't listen. And on the reason I didn't vote for alcohol, because I don't think Boy Scouts and alcohol should have anything to do with it. Just the name just bugs me, because I was in Scouts. I gave 11 years of my life in Scouts. I'll never vote for that. Not because it's something I don't believe in alcohol, I just don't believe they belong in the same building. They take that name away, I'll vote for it. Thank you very much.
I think we're getting off the track. I think we need to go back to what we have on our agenda, and any conversations could be best maybe later.
I may agree, but I think the part of it needs to come to some type of a decision. I mean, if there's a feeling there's a conflict of interest, then
I don't think you're going to get any answers. I think everybody has their own feelings, their thoughts, and I think it's beyond anything we're going to sell here today.
Bruce?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with Stephanie's opinion against it. We've had a discussion at least once. However, there is another part of that state law talking about something called prejudicial bias. And the problem I do have is not even with the petition. It is with a statement that she made to Mr. Fuller the very first time she met him, that she would stop him in his project any way she could. That goes beyond having an opinion. I have an opinion about wind, which actually is more against it than for it. But the point is, I'm trying to be unbiased in the decision. To me, that shows something called prejudicial bias. And
You're absolutely right.
And promoting the project at secret meetings isn't also promoting the
You don't know
project?
that. You weren't at the meeting and you don't know what.
There was a meeting.
You don't know what the meeting
if
was
I could
called
speak to
for.
that?
You
You
don't
were
know what
there.
we're talking about.
The meeting, the actual meeting was confirmed by Carol, that they did have a meeting.
No,
Okay.
can I speak something about this meeting?
I don't, go ahead.
Oh,
I didn't go to the meeting. I heard there was a meeting. I never heard that it was being called by Mr. Fuller or the planning board or anybody. I was told that there was going to be a group of people in town who were setting up a committee called something like Clifton Residents for Business. And they were going to be meeting at the church. That's the only thing I ever heard. And I don't, beyond that, I don't know. But that has nothing to do with wind power, has nothing to do with the planning board members being there. It has to do with people in this town who were getting together to talk about business in this community. And that's what I know about. And where all this other stuff came from, I have no idea.
Manufactured by the task force.
Can I speak?
Just manufactured by the task
I'm
force.
going to read from the ethics policy that I have been talking about. Any select board member who believes that another select board member, I'm going to leave some parts out. I mean, just because they don't apply, has a financial or special interest other than an interest held by the public generally in any agenda item before his or her collective body, or in any necessary or required action related to official duties, shall disclose the nature and extent of such interest. A public record shall be made of such disclosure. So it has to, if a select board member brings it up about another select board member, then once the issue of conflict has been raised relative to an individual select board member, and disclosure has been made as provided above, the select board members not having a conflict of interest shall review the facts as disclosed to them and shall vote on whether or not such individual has a financial or special interest relating to the particular agenda item or act of official duty concerned. All conflict of interest questions relative to the particular agenda item shall be resolved prior to any consideration of the item concerned. And then later on, a majority vote shall determine the question. So that's the procedure that should be followed, in my opinion, first, with regard to any select board member that another select board member believes may have a conflict of interest under the policy.
And I, as a select board member, feel that you do have a conflict of interest, Stephanie. I think it's tough. I can't make a motion, I'm the chairperson.
All right. I make a motion that Stephanie be,
Before motion, have we had the discussion of the probable discussion of the facts of the potential conflict? I mean, we've had some discussion, and I don't know if Stephanie wants to have more, or if anybody.
Just listening to what you said, listening to what Dave read, and then hearing it, and then listening to what you said, what MMA said, I tend to agree with Bruce, and probably Stephanie doesn't have a conflict of interest because I don't see a special interest there. I certainly don't see a financial interest there. So if you're trying to meet those tests, I don't see it. I do agree that she's got a prejudicial perspective on it, and then evidence of that is the incendiary remark she made a few minutes ago without any evidence. But that doesn't mean she has a conflict of interest.
Without evidence?
Well, you just said that the meeting was to promote wind, and clearly, that wasn't really the point of the meeting. You have
How many other business members were at the meeting?
Excuse me?
How many other
We
business
should
members?
be talking about the meeting.
Right, but the point is, it was an incendiary remark. The only point I'm trying to make is that as far as the evidence of any perspective is, the evidence of the remark was indicative of a certain point of view. But I do not believe that if you listen to what David read, and that you listen to what you said about what was said at MMA, trying to be absolutely totally objective about it, I don't think she probably meets the test of having a conflict of interest. If you really strictly look at it, and that's the thing. And I like, as much as I'd like to say it is, I just don't think that it probably would fully meet the test.
But it's not even your place, it's for this board's place.
No, I know.
I guess I'm going to just speak up.
Peter has his hand up. Please
First
speak.
of all, this prejudicial bias thing that's getting thrown around, you want to check and see if that has to do with select board members or planning board members. Planning board members are in a quasi-judicial role. That means they're acting like judges. And that's what's so upsetting about planning board members that would promote a project, because they're in a quasi-judicial role. I can't believe that you're talking about select board members having biases because you are politicians. Take a look at Washington. You get elected on the basis of your opinions, and on basis of you saying, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. I hate wind projects. I'm gonna defeat them all. I think they're terrible for the town. You can say that. I've never had a problem with select board members having opinions. I want you to. It's way easier to deal with than, well, I'm impartial, when you're really, doing everything that you can to promote the project. So please, have your opinions. Be right out there. That is not a conflict of interest.
John Paul, attorney representing Piskin Mound. I'll be very brief and just say a few points. I'll stand up. One, with respect to planning board, I think it's very important to understand that they're acting in two different capacities. One, they have their quasi-judicial hat on, judges, when they're sitting down reviewing an application that involves someone's property rights. I agree with that. But they also have a very different hat. They wear their legislative hat, as they have been doing in the ordinance amendment process. That's a very different capacity. The call them rules, ex parte communication rules, that apply to quasi-judicial proceedings do not apply to those types of legislative policy proceedings, meetings, whatever they may be. So I think that's just an important distinction to keep in mind. With respect to the policy, I have not read the select board's policy. The other thing I would mention, it seems to reflect or embody at least the statutory conflict of interest, which I know Attorney Septic can read from. That's more of a financial standpoint. The other one I would at least mention is there is a common law conflict of interest that still exists as well. And that's a personal interest, such that there's such a temptation that you can't make an independent evaluation. I don't know if that's the case here, but that's also part of the overlay. You have financial interest and personal interest. I don't know if the personal interest under common law directly lines up or square with special interest as in the policy, but notwithstanding whether the policy exists or does not exist, you have those two legal parameters you have to work within with the main. Financial interest, and it's a specific test. And then there's the personal interest, which is a common law test, and it depends on the very fact-specific circumstances. I don't know what those fact-specific circumstances even are, but I just know that's the framework that you're working within.
I think the very difficult part of this is that it is so much of, I don't want to call it a gray area, but it is that part of it that when we started, there were two select members who did recuse themselves. One had that special interest, another one felt there was implications that there could be. So this has been, and all I'm asking for is fairness from our board to make the right decision that is impartial. And that's what the task is before us right now. I think we're going to have a few more minutes. I will take these hands and then we need to decide what we're going to do with this. Julie, you're up first.
Just because Pete and I need to go, it's our peak farm season. I want to address Nancy blurring or changing the nature of the meeting at the Clifton Baptist Church. And because I want it to be understood that it was the wind developer and planning board members together, and they were promoting the wind project. One of my pieces of proof is the transcript of a message that Bill Rand left on a citizen's answering machine where he says, "Thought you might be interested in a meeting tonight at the church, top of the hill, and it's being presented by the developer of the wind energy facility, and he's going to be talking about tax benefits." Now that to me is promoting the wind project. That's two planning board members and the developer. That's Bill Rand's message on someone's answering machine. Don't let that go, Carol, please. Don't get so absorbed by other issues that you don't discuss, was that ethical? I want that to get discussed by the select board somewhere. Thank you.
Paula.
Just another point that you seem to be putting an awful lot of
I
credence.
can't hear what she's saying. Bring her up front.
I'm sorry?
You can't hear them to go up front, please.
on an ethics policy which has never come back into the light of day since. At the time we brought it to the board in whatever year that was, it was because of a conflict of interest of a selectman also being a planning board member. If that policy had been adopted, wouldn't that board have done something about that member? No. That member was allowed to stay and hold both positions. That policy has never been enforced in any way, shape, or form. I've never heard anyone talk about it ever again.
We talk about it in meetings quite often. And,
Since I brought it up in
and
January.
we don't have that situation in town anymore.
And nobody brought it up when John Williams stayed at the table, took part in discussions. Nobody ever brought it up then. Even though he recused himself from votes, I don't believe John ever took a vote on anything but he did not recuse himself from discussions. He did not leave the vicinity of the board.
I never speak at these meetings, so, and funnily enough, I'm kind of nervous doing it. But I have a couple of concerns and I just can't stand it, so I'm going to say it. Firstly, it really bothers me that everything all the discussion that's going on in here about all that stuff that your town attorney keeps cautioning you public representatives not to pursue this discussion because he knows from legislation and whatever that we could get into some real muddy water just on the technicalities of what order is happening in what discussion. So I really want to see us follow whatever your attorney, and sounds like ours is saying the same thing, in terms of whatever is supposed to go in whatever order it's supposed to go in, so we don't end up either side getting hung on a technicality. Because what we want is truth represented. Okay, so can we just follow the order that he says is whatever our legal responsibility is, and that falls to the board here. So I'm all in favor of whatever he says the order is supposed to be. Please, can we just do it? The second thing I want to say is that Carol, right, common sense tells you if it looks like a duck and walks like a duck and sounds like a duck, it is a duck. And you can say that you don't have any kind of special interest, but we all know that you do because of how you have voiced your opinions about it before you knew that your opinions were going to call you to a standard that would be upheld by this board and by your position as a public representative. Okay? And thirdly, I don't appreciate anybody telling me that my husband is a liar and a cheat, manipulative and dishonest. He called a meeting for this town for people who were interested in small business. Period. If any other business people were there and wanted to speak, they were invited to do so. If they were not there, then they did not get to speak. We spoke about wind because that is part of the small business that is being proposed in this town. Don't call my husband a liar or a cheat or a manipulator or a dishonest man. Okay?
I never did. And you're the only one so far today that has raised their voice in such a way.
Well, that's
you're not even a
actually
resident
true.
of this town.
Eric Johns and I both have very demonstrative personalities, and I talk loud when I'm telling you I love you. So I'm going to talk loud when I'm telling you what you're doing is torturing me.
The bottom line is that's what we hire politicians to do when we elect them to office, is to hold the opinion that you agree with. You may not agree with my opinion, but there's a good number of people in this town that do.
Not a majority, clearly. We wouldn't still be trying